Hey, welcome back. You know, sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones we think we already know. The ones we learned in a grade school textbook with a simple map and a neat, bold line connecting point A to point B. For years, I carried one of those stories in my head. It was about a singular, dusty path across continents, a Silk Road, where caravans traveled from Rome to China in one epic, romantic journey. And I believed it until I found myself, years later, standing in a chaotic, magnificent bazaar in Old Dhaka, watching something that made that whole image crumble. I'm Ibnul Jaif Farabi, and this is The Great Conversation. Today, we're pulling on a single, shimmering thread of history and watching an entire tapestry unravel. Episode 7. The Silk Road was not a road, a network of middlemen and myths. So, let's start with that myth. Close your eyes and picture it. You probably see a long line of camels, laden with silks and spices, plodding through the endless dunes of the Taklamakan Desert. A lone traveler, perhaps a Venetian merchant like Marco Polo, making the entire treacherous trek from the Mediterranean to the court of Kublai Khan. It's a compelling image. It's also almost entirely wrong. The first and most important truth is this: no single person, in the entire span of ancient or medieval history, ever traveled the full length of the Silk Road. Not one. The distance was too vast, the political borders too fractured, the dangers too immense. What we call the Silk Road was never a single road at all. It was a sprawling, ever-shifting web of connections. A network. Think of it less like an interstate highway and more like the internet. A decentralized, resilient system of nodes and links. The nodes were the oasis towns, the caravanserais, the bustling market cities like Samarkand, Kashgar, or Baghdad. And the links were the countless trails, mountain passes, and desert tracks that connected them. Goods moved through this network not as through a pipe, but like a whisper in a game of telephone, passed from hand to trusted hand. This is where our first key character enters, the middleman. The real heroes of the Silk Road weren't the mythical through travelers. They were the Sogdian merchants, the Parthian traders, the Uyghur intermediaries. They were the locals. A bolt of Chinese silk might be sold by a weaver in Chang'an to a merchant from the Darien Basin. That merchant would haul it to a caravanserai in Dunhuang, where he'd sell it to a Uyghur trader. The Uyghur would take it over the Pamir Mountains to a Sogdian in Samarkand, who'd then bargain with a Parthian, who might finally get it to a Syrian merchant at the edge of the Roman world. At each node, the price increased. At each handoff, languages, customs, and currencies were translated. The middleman wasn't just moving goods. He was a cultural interpreter, a diplomat, a risk manager. He was the essential lubricant in this complex machine. And this system worked precisely because no one controlled the whole thing. It was a grassroots, entrepreneurial ecosystem. It thrived on local knowledge. A merchant from Merv knew the best well in the Karakum Desert, the temperament of the local Turkic chieftain, and the going rate for lapis lazuli. His world was his segment. His power was his connections on either side. This is so familiar to me, as an engineer and someone who's moved between worlds. Building anything, a business, a life in a new country, is about finding and trusting the right nodes in the network. It's about understanding that no one makes the whole journey alone. Now, if the physical structure was a network, the lifeblood flowing through it was more than just silk. This is our second myth to dismantle. We've named this entire, century-spanning civilizational exchange after a single commodity. It's like calling the internet the email web. Yes, Chinese silk was a prestige product, a dazzling luxury that drove demand. But for every bale of silk, there were sacks of pepper, ginger, and nutmeg. There were bolts of cotton and wool. There were raw materials like ivory and jade. And perhaps most importantly, there were ideas. This was the true great conversation happening across continents. A Buddhist monk from Gandhara, carrying sutras translated from Sanskrit into Chinese, might share a fire at a caravanserai with a Nestorian Christian fleeing persecution who was carrying the teachings of a prophet from the Levant to the heart of Asia. Technologies moved. Papermaking traveled west from China, changing administration and literature forever. Astronomy, mathematics, and medical knowledge from India and the Greco-Roman world filtered east. The stirrup, a seemingly simple invention, revolutionized warfare and society as it traveled. The Silk Road was a massive, slow-motion exchange of intellectual capital. The goods were just the packaging, which brings me to the stories. Because what is a network but a vessel for narratives? The most lasting exports were often myths, religions, and artistic motifs. A statue of the Buddha from Mathura in India, over generations of travel and local interpretation, could slowly transform into a distinctly Chinese Buddha, with softer features and different robes. A Persian tale finds its way into a collection of Arabic stories, which then inspires a poet in Constantinople. The network didn't just transport culture, it remixed it. It created new syntheses at every node. The Silk Road was less a delivery route and more a perpetual, collaborative studio. Sitting here in New York, a city that is itself a modern Silk Road node, I can't help but see the pattern everywhere. Our global supply chains, a digital physical network of middlemen, far more complex than any ancient caravan. The internet, the ultimate web of ideas, where memes and movements are the new spices and sutras, translated and transformed as they jump between digital caravanserais. Our social media platforms. We still rarely get things directly from the source. We rely on the network. The myth of the lone genius, the solitary explorer making the whole journey? It's as romantic and as flawed as Marco Polo traveling alone from Venice to Beijing. Everything meaningful is built on layers of exchange, on the work of unseen intermediaries. So, the next time you hear the term Silk Road, I want you to picture something different. Don't picture a line on a map. Picture a vast, shimmering web. Picture a noisy, smoky caravanserai at dusk, where a dozen languages fill the air. Picture a Sogdian merchant, not as a faceless middleman, but as a savvy entrepreneur, examining a bolt of silk not just for its quality, but for the story it will tell his buyer in Persia. Picture the Buddhist monk haggling for a new pair of boots with a coin from a kingdom that no longer exists. This messy, human, brilliantly efficient network is our true inheritance. It reminds us that connection has always been fragmented, local, and deeply personal. Our world wasn't built by lone travelers on a single road. It was woven, thread by thread, by a great, unending conversation. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Great Conversation. If this reframing of history resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd share the show with someone who'd enjoy it. You can find more episodes and transcripts at our production home, Light Not Studios. https://www.lightnotstudios.com. I'm Ibnul Jaif Farabi. Until next time, keep listening and keep connecting.